Morning, everyone. It is an incredibly grey day in LA today. It's a little bit depressing, but to be honest, shouldn't complain because LA is normally insane weather compared to the rest of the world. So really shouldn't be saying anything, especially compared to London, where I'm from. So, guys, the topic for discussion today is actually a residential brokerage that is being sued for not paying their commercial landlord $95,000 in rent. So, Keller Williams affiliate, they are called Forward Studio City, which is a residential brokerage. So Keller Williams, if you guys aren't aware, is quite an interesting brokerage model where you have a lot of affiliates or subsidiaries that effectively you can register. It's like a McDonald's kind of model where actually you can own and run your McDonald's and you kind of license it through McDonald's. So you have access to all of their infrastructure, their systems. However, you are kind of running your own brokerage. You're taking a lot of the percentage of the commission which is generated from that brokerage. You're hiring your own agents. However, you're kind of trading under the Keller Williams brokerage brand, and you are kind of getting the advantage of all of the national and international. I think Keller Williams are international support, training, etc. that they have. So this brokerage was called is called Forward Studio City, and it's being sued by Transwestern, who own a building in the buildings on Ventura Place in Studio City. So that it's being sued for $95,000 in unpaid rent for this office space. Now, the lawsuit effectively claims that it gave the owner or the person who owns this subsidiary 10 days notice to pay the rent for their office, which doesn't sound like a huge amount of time. You know, if it's, I presume that there's been a prior communication before giving notice and after that 10 days launching this lawsuit. But apparently they've been renting this space since May 2015, so a long time, and their lease was amended 2018. I believe the original price that they were paying was pretty affordable, it sounds like. It was about $3 something a foot. Let me just have a look at this. Yeah, $3.55 a foot, which was $5,346 a month, which is quite a bit of money considering it was a 1,500 square foot space. But obviously, if you're monetizing that, you have agents sitting in that space working, and they're actually generating a good amount of revenue, then $5,300 for a commercial space in a pretty good location, I think, right on Ventura Boulevard. Apparently, it's kind of the main strip. So that was up until 2018. However, that was renegotiated to $4 a square foot. So an increase, but actually not a big increase from 2018 to August 2019. So I presume if it is a $95,000 of unpaid rent, you're looking at basically a year of unpaid rent on that. Is that right? A year and a half of unpaid rent. And apparently that this amount, so that was 6,024 from 5,346, not a huge increase. But apparently there were further rent increases factored into the lease, which included a increase to $10 per square foot. So it's more than double the amount. And that was going to take place in September of this year, 2024. And that would make the rent $15,500 a month. So you're going basically three times the amount of rent, which is a huge, well, not three, but almost three times the amount of rent, which is a huge increase. Now, the reason I found this interesting is because looking at the residential market, because obviously that's going to play into the profit and what of a residential brokerage and what they're going to effectively be able to pay in rent. Looking at 2023, there was a huge drop off in the amount of residential transactions, meaning there were a lot fewer agents doing deals because there were a lot less deals out there. Hence, brokerages were not doing the same volume of transactions and not making the same amount of money that they previously were. And so that increase for a year to $6,000 for $4 a square foot from 2022 to 2023 was probably a great deal. However, if you are sitting there in August 2023, you are feeling that drop off of transactional volume in that year. And so by August, I think you'd be really seeing that. And the predictions at that point were further interest rate increases. So you were probably going to predict, if you're a broker and owning that business, that you were going to see a further decline in transactions. Now, if in your lease agreement that was due in September this year, i.e., a year on, to go up to $15,500 in rent, it's obviously something that you may not want to take on if your profit is declining significantly and your rent is going to go up 3 to 4 times. So I thought this was an interesting one to kind of think about, because I think there's probably going to be other brokerages, residential, that are potentially leasing this commercial space. And probably the commercial market at the time in September 2022 was seeing the drop off prior to the interest rates. You know, we've seen commercial real estate in a bit of an issue, it has a problem at the moment where they just have huge vacancies. And so if you were the landlord of that residential brokerage, and you were basically getting written into that lease, yes, we'll give it to you probably for, you know, a very small increase, $3.50 to $4 a square foot, or 5,500 to 6,000, as long as you agree to go up to $15,500 a rent in 2023. You know, that's probably a way to keep the tenant in place and to say, right, we would like you to stay and we do not want to have big carrying costs that we can't cover. However, you agree to be paying us maybe the difference, which is $15,500 a rent in September 2023, which is a 2024, which is a great deal. You know, it's probably like, right, you know, we can cover our costs now. However, we know that we're really going to start to make profit in 2024, when, you know, hopefully it will help them cover more costs or actually make a profit on the building. Now, it's unclear, as I said, when the defendant stopped paying rent. It's Henrik Shaknazarian, who is a team leader for this Keller Williams Studio City, said that the company was made aware of the lawsuit on January 12th, and they're having their legal team look into it. He said he also noted that the company's main office is not located at that location on 12001 Ventura Place, and it's actually in Laurel Canyon Boulevard. And apparently the attorney did not return any requests for comment. Now, the other thing which I think is quite interesting on this, and I say that a lot, this is quite interesting. The thing that I thought was also interesting is that the actual residential brokerage is probably very, very aware of how the law works in regards to real estate transactions. And if they're being sued for that $95,000, they may have looked at it and looked at their situation in August 2023 and thought, you know what, potentially we are going to continue to see that drop off in rent. And if we stop paying rent at that amount of $6,000 a month, it's actually going to be cheaper for us to pay off $95,000. And I think what the actual Transwestern have actually said, that they would like they've asked for $95,000 unpaid rent, and they want attorney's fees covered and a forfeiture agreement, i.e., to give up the location that they're sitting in. So if I was the broker sitting there, and this is not a good thing you should do, this may be just a way of working around the law. And this, again, is my opinion. This is something that I've drawn from just kind of reading this information. $95,000 a month in rent, if you're tying yourself into $15,000 a month in rent for the next however many years, you are going to be in a much worse situation than if you've got that $95,000 amount to pay, because you're going to give up the actual lease, and therefore you're not kind of in the position where you're having to pay that $15,000 a month. So is this a tactical move where they're saying, right, we're not going to pay rent for a year, and what we're going to do with that is hopefully get evicted, and we know the amount that we're going to get sued for is roughly, you know, this amount which we owe. So I don't know if you guys have kind of think that is right, if you think that's wrong. It's a residential brokerage, which the reason I think that is that they may just have a very good knowledge of how the law works and how that process would have gone forward. So there's two things to take from this. One, I think that you're seeing potentially residential brokerages in situations where they're not potentially wanting to take on large leases in commercial buildings. I do also think that the amount of time that you see an actual client or a buyer or a seller walk into the office and actually say, hey, I want to sell my home. That has dropped off a lot since the internet came along. Now it's you go on Google, you search reviews, you see who the number one agent is in your area, you see if people are selling similar properties, and you probably email them or contact them by phone, set up a meeting and meet at your property instead of walking down the high street. Oh, there's a residential brokerage office. I'm going to walk in there and I'm going to see what it costs to sell my home or what they're going to do and have the meeting there. That's what I used to do in London a lot with buyers, is they would come into the property, into the office and say, hey, I'm looking to buy a property. This is my criteria. What can you find me? And I think that model actually worked because you did not work with an exclusive buyer's agent. You worked with, you didn't work with any buyer's agent. You turned around and you tried to spread your net as the buyer as much as you could, because all of these brokerages had exclusive listings. So if you had your details on their book saying, this is what I'm looking for, then that effectively would be your best way of hearing about upcoming properties and things that would work for you prior to all that stuff being listed online. So there was a big advantage in that. With this, if you have a buyer's agent, it's not the same. That person is going out there trying to find properties for you, and therefore they've got the connections. They're doing a much better job. So would you have, and I don't think you do, because from my office in a great location on San Vicente Boulevard in Brentwood, we do not see many people walking through the door. It's more people who are coming in for a meeting that's already been set up, or you've got a discussion or a team meeting, things along those lines, or someone needs to drop something off, etc. So I think you may see a situation where this is a trend that we see more and more, where residential brokerages see the location of a commercial office or a retail location as less and less effective, as this does seem like it is on Ventura Boulevard. And they may not want to renew leases, or in this situation, which is me drawing a conclusion from this, they may look at their lease and say, how do we get out of this lease instead of paying a lease for the next 5 years? Normally the commercial extensions are 60 months. So you've got 5 years of being tied into a contract. And so if that's coming up, you may not renew it, or you may say, hey, I don't want to be paying that, so I'm not going to pay rent. I'd rather pay the back rent and get evicted plus pay the lawyer's fees because it's going to cost us less. With the trend that we've seen in residential real estate, less transactions, I think that is going to change, and I think we're going to see an increase in that, but I don't know if we're going to return to those levels of 2020, 2021. I think we're going to see a steady increase that is going to, be in a positive direction, but it may not be that way. Anyway, guys, that's my thoughts for today. It's obviously on this topic, which is something I haven't really discussed before. So instead of talking about the same things, hopefully you guys found this interesting. I'll be back tomorrow with another video, and I hope you guys are great wherever you are. If you're in LA, hopefully the sun comes out.